Welcome to the show. Today we're talking about 10 Japanese games for the PlayStation 1. Released in 1997, Tobal 2 is a 3D fighting game that unfortunately never made it outside of Japan. Originally planned for a Western release, Square decided to cancel it due to the sales of the first Tobal not meeting their expectations. With an astonishing 200 characters to choose from, Tobal 2 set the bar when it came to diversity within its roster, and to this day still holds the record for the largest amount of playable fighters in any beat-em-up. Building upon the first Tobal, the sequel expanded the modes that were introduced in the first outing, and offered a more robust experience, mainly in the shape of the game's quest mode that contains 6 dungeons to battle through, as well as an explorable town which was sadly absent in the first game. The focus of the quest mode is to gain experience for specific body parts by using them in battle, resulting in the moves gaining extra damage upon leveling up. Making your way through the quest mode also gives you the opportunity to unlock extra characters, including a fucking chocobo. The game is worth picking up for this reason alone, as there is nothing more satisfying than battering the shit out of people with everyone's favourite Final Fantasy mascot. I'd also like to mention the game's soundtrack, which includes some of the best music I've ever heard within a game, and I often find myself listening to it outside of the experience. All in all, Tobal 2 is one hell of a fighter, and a game that definitely deserves your time. Macross has to be one of the best animes I've ever had the pleasure of watching, and as you can imagine, having the opportunity to play a game set within one of my favourite universes was something I was eager to fulfill. What feels like a cross-up between Ace Combat and Virtual On, Macross VFX2 offers the player an intense gameplay experience that sees you taken to the skies and transforming into a variety of different vehicles in order to overcome the game's many enemies. What makes this game stand out is the impressive visuals and superb sound design. Admittedly, the controls can become a bit annoying, especially when fighting enemies on the ground, but once you get used to the game's many design quirks, it all becomes second nature. The game offers 8 different mechs to play, all possessing their own unique attributes, and 3 separate modes of transformation that are all suited to the many different situations you will encounter throughout the game's missions. Macross VFX2 was originally planned to release in the West, but due to many legal reasons, Bandai made the call to only unleash it upon the Japanese market. But thanks to the wonderful power of the internet, it's now possible to enjoy this game no matter where you come from. If you're a fan of the Ace Combat series, or perhaps even the Omega Boost series, I would say there's enough on offer here to warrant a purchase or download. Known as The Last Blade here in the West, Bakumatsu Roman is a 2D fighting game developed by SNK. It was originally released for the Neo Geo and eventually unleashed upon the PlayStation, but only in Japan. Taking many cues from SNK's previous series Samurai Showdown, the game offers a weapons-based fighting experience with 2 specific fighting styles that are known as Speed or Power Mode. These 2 modes break up the gameplay and are designed to fulfill the style of play you are most suited to. As you can imagine, the Speed mode offers the player increased speed when executing attacks that results in having the ability to chain together normal moves into a spectacular super move, as well as a speed combo becoming available to the player. Power mode on the other hand offers increased attack damage, as well as having access to something called a super desperation move that can only be performed once certain criteria has been met within each fight. Now I love 2D fighting games, and Bakumatsu Roman, fuck me, that's a mouthful, is one of the more impressive games I've ever played. But where this game truly shines is within its multiplayer mode. The combat is insanely fun and surprisingly deep at the same time, giving new players the opportunity to enjoy the experience, but also offering more seasoned beat-em-up fans something to sink their teeth into. Released in 1997, Panzer Bandit is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up that sees you taking the role of up to 4 characters as you make it through the story mode, as well as having the option to take up the fight with a friend by your side. Playing this game reminded me of Gunstar Heroes for the Sega Saturn, mainly due to the action taking place across 2 separate planes of movement. The player has 3 move options at their disposal, consisting of a strong and weak attack, as well as a special move that can be triggered using the shoulder buttons. In order to pull one off, the player must perform combos in order to gain energy, which is then dispensed upon unleashing one of the powerful hyper attacks that can level enemies in the blink of an eye. Panzer Bandit is set in the not so distant future, with the game tackling the subject of depleting natural resources and the race against time to stop an evil corporation known as ARC. Upon completing the game, the various bosses you encounter throughout the duration of the story then become available as playable characters, which adds a bit of longevity to the game. Panzer Bandit was received very well amongst critics at the time of its release, and has now gone on to become one of the most obscure PlayStation games available for the system. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a fan of Gunstar Heroes, then Panzer Bandit is right up your alley. Released in 1997, Harmful Park is a 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up set in a bizarre amusement park. Known as Heartfelt Park, an evil scientist has taken it over. Due to this, one of his colleagues enlists the help of their daughters in order to bring an end to his madness. You command a strange flying motorcycle with the ability to take advantage of the 4 weapons available to you: the potato, ice cream, pie and jelly. They all possess their own unique attributes as well as secondary functions that offer up different strategies in order to deal with the onslaught of enemies that you will encounter. Like with most great shoot-'em-ups, Harmful Park offers up a robust multiplayer mode which allows you to take on the game with a friend, as well as the addition of 3 multiplayer mini-games that manage to extend the life of the game long after the ending credits have rolled. The visuals are bright and colourful, and when coupled with the pleasant and catchy soundtrack, you have something with all the right ingredients that all comes together to offer one of the craziest shoot-'em-ups available on the system. I'll be honest with you, it took me a while to get into this game. Obviously from the title you would expect it to be a beat 'em up, but what you get instead is a sort of visual novel based around the King of Fighters series. Released in 1998 and developed by Yume Kobo, the game takes place between the events of KOF 96 and KOF 97, primarily focusing on the character of Kaio. It is set in his hometown of Osaka and follows his travels around the world throughout the duration of the story. Now the fighting is completely different to what we would usually see in the series. It is entirely turn-based and prompts the player to select their moves from a menu, with each move playing out after the selection has been made. But where the game really comes into its own is with the inclusion of desperation moves that offer up unique anime-inspired animations that look absolutely stunning. As well as being able to control Kaio, nearly every character from the series is available to you upon completion of the several side quests that litter the world and revolve around a specific character. If you're a fan of the series, I highly recommend you pick it up and try it out. Persona 2 Innocent Sin was released in 1999 and acts as a sequel to the first game in the series. Due to many factors, including some of the game's more controversial content and lack of staff, it was decided that Atlus would not port and localize the game for the Western audience. Now with a fan translation widely available, it is now easy to enjoy the game if you live outside of Japan. Persona 2 takes place in the fictional city of Samaru, with the game following the journey of a group of high school students on their quest to confront a villain known as the Joker. As we've all come to expect from the series, the students are aided by their personas, which act as personified aspects of their personality. The combat is turn-based and sees you facing a variety of demons, whilst taking advantage of the many personas possessed by the protagonists. An aspect of the game known as the rumor system is a fascinating inclusion that can influence events that take place within the city, such as specific weapons becoming available to you, as well as new shops for your party to use. A ton of dungeons, story-triggered encounters, and various extras to unlock will keep you busy for the duration of the lengthy campaign. If you're a fan of the series, this one's a no-brainer and has actually received a re-release for the PSP. Zanak is a vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up that was originally made for the MSX. It wasn't until 2001 that the game was released for the PlayStation as part of the 15th anniversary of the original. Included was free versions of the NES release, as well as an updated version of the game titled Zanak Neo. You have loads of weapons at your disposal, but the main weapon is a rapid-fire cannon that can be upgraded throughout the levels by collecting powers, resulting in the speed of which shots are expelled. As well as a main cannon, the player has the choice of 8 speciality weapons, which are dotted around each level that range from directional bullets to shields and even indestructible projectiles, resulting in some devastating attacks. Throughout the game you will encounter a variety of different enemy types, as well as several bosses that can be huge and require specific strategies in order to defeat. But what truly made Zanak unique is the inclusion of a system known as Automatic Level of Difficulty Control, or ALS for short. Essentially, the game will gauge your experience and alter the game's difficulty on the fly to match your skills, resulting in a much more pleasant experience for the user. All in all, this is a great shoot 'em up and one that I can highly recommend. Originally released for the Super Nintendo in 1995, Tales of Fantasia is the first game in Namco's widely popular Tales series. It wasn't until 1998 that the game was ported to the PlayStation for the Japanese audience, bringing with it a variety of upgrades that took advantage of the powerful hardware. These included an amazing animated opening sequence, redrawn character sprites and backgrounds, a 3D world map, as well as re-recorded audio that utilized the new CD format of the PlayStation. The way battles play out is pretty unique and is known as the linear motion battle system. The action takes place across two-dimensional terrain but extends beyond the reaches of the screen, which results in scrolling back and forth between different positions depending on the location of your character. You can only take control of one character during battle, with the rest of your party being assigned different states such as passive mode, active, or attack mode, although it is possible to use specific attacks for them from the pause menu. I won't go too much into the story, as with any RPG this is usually the best aspect, and Tales of Fantasia does not disappoint. If you've been following the series for a while, it's interesting to go back and see how it all began. With the game now being available on iPhone, as well as the option of emulation, the game is now easily accessible. Written and directed by the Messiah himself, Hideo Kojima, Policenauts is a graphic adventure game that was originally released for the NEC PC. It wasn't until 1996 that the game would hit the PlayStation, but unfortunately would never leave the land of the rising sun. Mainly consisting of a point-and-click interface, the game took a lot of cues from Kojima's previous game Snatcher, but also included several sections that required the player to complete shooting sequences in order to advance. As you've come to expect with the writing style of Hideo Kojima, Policenauts depicts a story with many intricate details and characters that would go on to influence his later work with the Metal Gear series. You take control of Jonathan, who after a freak accident in space was lost for 25 years before being found. Thanks to the nature of his spacesuit, his age was preserved and he was recovered alive and well. The story involves a request from his ex-wife asking him to pursue the disappearance of her current husband. I won't ruin the story, as it truly is the best part of the game, and with a full English translation now available, you totally need to check this one out, especially if you're a fan of the Metal Gear series or even Kojima himself.